So, back in the earliest of days, way back in 2022 and early 2023, a game I like to talk about and made a couple videos on was Tiny Thief. I made a video showcasing some Easter eggs and a chapter ranking in May and June of 2022, then made a timeline video in February 2023 at the request of the Tiny Thief Discord. Now, recently I have been going through my wonders to-do list and making stuff I wanted to make at some point in time, or have been wanting to do but never did. And back in August of 2023, yes, that long ago, the Tiny Thief Discord asked me for more videos. I still have some screenshots I took 2 months ago of the messages. No, this video hasn't been in production for 2 months, I'm just terrible at committing to an idea. It's February 25th as of writing this part of the script. The Tiny Thief quiz that Wobson is mentioning in the screenshot was already being edited and it's on the second channel. It's been for a long time actually. I'll link it in the outro if I remember to. Anyway, Electro in this here screenshot suggests that I make a short series where I rank each level from each chapter. I said that if I were to make that idea, it'd be in the form of one gigantic mega ranking of all 37 levels. I noted that down in my to-do list, intending for it to be 7-9, made the Tamarachi Life video instead, and this has been sitting in my to-do list ever since. I've tried writing an opening to this video like 3 times throughout the year-and-a-half time span that this idea has been in my to-do list. Let's see if this will be the day I finally make this godforsaken video. Here is every level in Tiny Thief ranked. Medieval Burger isn't even really a level. It's one of those mobile game ads that only lets you click when the game lets you click. It's a tutorial, I get that, but you literally cannot do anything except for a specific series of inputs in it. Pretty simple last place. Key for Freedom 2 is more of the same. This is a mix of Unwanted Posters, Key for Freedom 1, and Starving Friend. The 3 levels I just mentioned are okay and can stand by themselves, but combining them just doesn't work because all but one of them are from first lessons and they're ungodly simple. You combine 3 simple things into one even simpler thing. This level is just boring and uninteresting. Next. Sneaky Picnic is a way better tutorial than Medieval Burger. It's short and to the point. I really do think compressing all of first lessons into 2 levels was what made the last 2 levels the bottom ones. FL just works better as a whole world since it just doesn't have to teach you everything at once. Sneaky Picnic is purely here because it's the simplest level in the game and not boring, and it lasts for like 15 seconds total. Next. Unwanted Posters is extremely self-explanatory. I'll just move on. Key for Freedom 1 also. Next. We really are just taking FL in order, huh? Harvest Time is the introduction to guards, and it does it fine. All of these early levels really have nothing to them, so sorry if I don't talk on them much. It should become a lot more interesting as we progress. Cheesy Plan and subsequently Starving Friend are by all means and purposes an extension of FL. The game really only begins at Bait the Hook, so we have quite a couple more placements of just the early levels with nothing to really say about them. It all comes down to personal preference with these bottom spots really. Sweetest Loot is the final level in FL and the first one where stuff actually happens. It's fine, it teaches the collectibles fine, and the guard is used fine. One more level and we're out of the tutorials, yay! Starving Friend is the best tutorial level because it takes the layout of Medieval Burger and makes a good level around it. The mechanism used is neat, the puzzle's simplistic, but works for a level in Rumbling Stomach. It's just all around decent. Alright, here we have our first level not from the tutorial chapters. The Wandering Fear isn't good. Cursed Treasure in general is a pretty suckish chapter. For most of the levels are just annoying and it takes forever. This one instead is just boring. The underwater bit is completely optional, which is a shame since it's the best part of the level. The entire thing is just a really simple beginning puzzle, fishing and going up. That's it. The collectibles are badly placed, the butcher's knife is really stupid, the necklace is fine although cryptic, and the underwater ones are fine but boring since there's 2 in the same screen. Just an overall disappointing level that I wish was more. And we're back to the tutorials. Bait the Hook is your first real challenge and is pretty solid. The puzzle is clever, the collectibles are easy to get but a bit tricky to find, mostly the crab as they should be. The ferret is a decent spot too. Good stuff. Moving on. Pumpkin Soup is the exact same thing. Literally everything I said about Bait the Hook applies here too. What puts this above Bait the Hook is the fact that it's an overall slightly more complicated level, which for the early worlds is nice. And we're back to Cursed Treasure. Meet the Tribe is also not that good. It's a really cool idea for a level, but the execution is a bit all over the place. It's one of my least favorite levels. The only reason it's all the way up here is because it does have some good stuff in it, and it being later in the game automatically makes it better since it's just a bigger level, but it's just boring. I don't know how they managed to take a premise that sounds really cool and make it this boring. Why is Cursed Treasure so hit or miss? It annoys me so much. Sad Piggy's pretty good. It's a good boss level for RS and is overall just decent. The puzzles are neat, but the level being so clearly early on, just makes it infuriating for new players. The collectibles are really dubiously placed too, but I can let it slide as long as it's not the 2 CT levels we just talked about. Good boss. Skeleton Army is the absolute biggest dud of the second half. It's the most forgettable level in all of Royal Rescue, Rattling Bones, and Bewitched. It goes by super fast, it's pretty uninteresting, the main goal is boring, the collectibles are a big upside since they're cleverly hidden, but there's also 4 of them. The ferret is really stupidly placed, and one of the very few times I had to look up a walkthrough to see how to do it. It's weirdly simple for being placed so deep into the game, and the ferret alone lowers my enjoyment of it quite a lot. Next. Bedtime Story is quite an iconic level. It's also surprisingly short. Candy Store and especially Jailbreak before this were a lot more complicated. This, in contrast, feels like a break from the last 2. Waking up the sheriff and then hiding upstairs is super clever. The fact that if you hide in the closet, the wife finds you because she has to throw her towel in is also cool. This is a really creative level, but it just could have been a bit more. As is, it's still really solid. Back to Cursed Treasure. Your treasure map is pretty good. It's mostly just its length keeping it back. It takes forever to get through the first time around, and it all looks pretty much the same. There's a little danger of being caught. The collectibles are boring. The ferret is really simple. It's objectively a good boss level, but my god do I find it uninteresting. Once again, it's this high because there's a lot to it. It's objectively super good, but my personal enjoyment of it is not as high as it should theoretically be. Sorry. Candy Store is a pretty cool level, that's about it. There's not much to say about it. I'm actively struggling to think what to put in here. I'm just gonna move on. To Steal a Thief is another good boss level. Corrupt Sheriff has a lot of potential for a great ending, and this delivers. It introduces secondary screens well, the puzzles are easy to grasp, they're creative, everything you could realistically want. The Lost Temple is a really cool level. It's probably the most creative level in the game. That being said, it's this low because of my personal enjoyment of it. It once again takes forever to go anywhere. It's mostly isolated puzzles rather than one continuous thing, and I do think it does that well and is a breath of fresh air. It's also right at the halfway point of the game, and I think that's a perfect spot for it. As such, it's right in the middle of this ranking. I didn't plan this, it just ended up like that. That's pretty cool. And here we have our first appearance from Royal Rescue. The Royal Perfume is like a knockoff birthday cake. That being said, it's still a really solid level, and it uses its gimmick well, and said gimmick is pretty good. Once again, it's just a bit too short for my liking. The ferret and collectibles are also really easy for the second half standards. Jailbreak is quite the difficulty spike from Candy Store. That said, it's a super creative level, and it does its gimmick of getting a thing that leads you to getting another thing in a sort of chain reaction, with the final goal being the last thing in the chain reaction. It does that well. One thing I will mention, however, is the ferret being really stupid to find. Otherwise, this is a good level. The Cursed Hat is by far the simplest level of RR. That said, it's still extremely memorable, and nothing is unfairly hidden or anything like that. It really is just a perfectly good level and nothing more. It's one of the most iconic in the game, one of the most enjoyable, it's memorable, all that good stuff. Birthday Cake is the best level from Corrupt Sheriff and by far the hardest level from the first 3 chapters. It's one of the most original and fresh ideas in the game, and it executes it really well. Stealing the 3 cakes in different ways is really creative, and each method is super cool. Blaming the kid for stealing a pie, releasing the mouse into the bakery, and sneaking in as a flower guy are all inventive ways of temporarily getting to the same place multiple times. It's really good. The collectibles in Ferret are also fair before you ask. Castle Under Siege is probably the weakest boss level, but it's meant to be a cliffhanger, so I guess it makes sense. Because this is meant to transition into Rattling Bones instead of being a satisfying end to Royal Rescue, it makes the chapter end on an unsatisfying note, and it's also a bit on the shorter end. That's what's holding it back. Either way, it's still a good level and a good cliffhanger at that. Red Parrot Tavern is the best level from the Cursed Treasure and by far the most creative. The whole gimmick of this level is top tier stuff and makes for one of the most fun levels. The collectibles make sense and are intuitive, the ferret is a bit unoriginal, but that's about it. It's just a super good level. Finally, Cursed Treasure did something well. A Dark Threat is a really good level. The entire feel of it is top-notch stuff, and that underground maze, while annoying, is unique in the whole game. The maze is definitely both the weak spot and strong spot of the level since it's super unique, but also annoying the first time around. That ending is also a better ending to RR than Castle Under Siege is. Bad Student marks the first appearance of Bewitched on the list. Bewitched is by far the hardest chapter in the game, and that can be an advantage and a disadvantage at the same time. Bad Student is probably the easiest level in the chapter, but also pretty uninteresting. The setting is really good and carries most of the level, but it drags a bit too long and starts to become a bit boring near the end. It's still a great level. Candy Factory is the biggest example of the difficulty and length of Bewitched hindering a level. This is one of the coolest levels when it comes to the idea, but my god is it too long. It's one of the hardest levels in the whole game, and my god does it get boring near the end. Still, the concept, the ending, and the puzzles themselves almost save it. Sword of Power is really good. The collectibles are the ferret is also but the rest is super solid. The baby dragon is really interesting idea, and the cutscene is just the cherry on top. Dark Magic, the finale of the game. This level is so close to being among the very best. It's already better than 30 of the 37 levels, but my god, that beginning pisses me off. It's like an unskippable 2-minute cutscene before the interesting parts, and the fact that it locks the ferret and 2 collectibles behind it once you leave is just annoying. Sorry, this was very close to being number 2. Friendship in Bloom is incredibly solid. I wouldn't have thought that this level would make it so high, but it did. The entire level is just birthday cake, but the 3 items you need are in separate locations, and it works really well. The 3 collectibles being gnomes is a neat touch. The Easter egg at the beginning is cool too. It's just all so good. The end goal being climbing up to the princess instead of breaking into the castle is also super neat. Trick or Treat is another example of Bewitched difficulty hindering a level. This might as well be the second hardest level in the game, and it can be pretty cryptic at times. The concept is another collectathon of 3 things to unlock a thing, and while that's fine, it drags a bit. Also, the tennis racket might as well be the most cryptic collectible in the entire game. Those are all my complaints though. Robot is the best opening to any chapter. I don't really have any complaints with it. The 3 levels above it are just more, and that ending cutscene is also dope as hell. The Magic Bazaar is probably the hardest level in Tiny Thief, and honestly this time it works to its advantage. It's the second to last level, so it makes sense, and that allows it to pack so many puzzles into it, which only really make it better. It's super good, and that ending is peak. Golden Tickets is ridiculously good. It's the build-up to what was once the final boss of the game, and it does that very well with an amusement park of all things. Also, that minecart ride is super good too. I swear, how did the 2 levels before the finales build them up so well with the weirdest possible locations? First an amusement park and then a fucking bazaar. Whatever, peak level. And finally, Eye of the Tentacle. I really don't think I need to explain why this is number 1. It was once the final boss of the entire game, and as a result, it's incredibly intense. That final cutscene, oh yes! The puzzles are great, it's just everything. Alright, I did it. That was quite a lot. Sorry I didn't speak much on each level. I didn't want this to be like 2 hours long. I think the 2,702 words I've written are enough. Here's the final list for people who skipped all the way to the end. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.